Okay. Are you ready to roll, man? Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Okay. Welcome to the Dr. Mudgil podcast. I mean, this is one I've really been looking forward to. I have a legend in front of me right now, Sam Bhaktiar, or Dr. Sam Bhaktiar, I should say, who I'm sure most of my followers do follow you on social media and are aware of you. But for those who don't, you're a major player in the fitness world. You're a tremendous entrepreneur. You've started an incredible franchise, the Camp Transformation Center, which has over 110 locations, I believe, at this point. But more impressive than all that, you're also a doctor. You're a chiropractic doctor, although you've never practiced, which I came to learn, which I love. But you made your Persian mother proud, just like my Indian mom kind of forced me into a field of medicine as well. And but more impressive than all of that is just like I really just love your story, man. And it's a story that is so incredibly inspiring. And I think it really a big theme in what I do is that if I can do it, anyone can do it. And it takes a shitload of hustle and grind and a tremendous amount of resilience and perseverance and dedication and burning that midnight oil, but it can be done. And your story is a true testament to that, And I'm just super psyched to have you here, man. So thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy morning. I know your schedule is packed for spending a little time with us this morning, my man.
Well, it's a pleasure and honor to be on your show, Doc. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so I'm just going to give like a sort of Cliff Notes version of what I've garnered from your life, just to kind of give my listeners and viewers a little bit of background about who you are, and then we're going to dive into that and kind of break it down a little bit and get into some of the nitty gritty. So, from what I know, and you just correct me if I'm wrong on any of these points. You were born in Tehran, Iran, during a very, very rough period. It's basically a war zone, and it was you, your mom, your dad. I think you're an only child. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. And, your dad was a deadbeat, kind of. He ditched you guys when you were at the age of 3, and as far as I know, you've never heard from him since.
Yeah, no, never.
Yeah, interesting. My mom and dad got divorced when I was a year old, and I've never had a word of contact with my dad since then. Also, so that was something that really resonated with me when I heard that. And then you were able, like I have a lot of friends who are Persian, and their family was able to escape, and you kind of escaped via France into like bumblefuck Pennsylvania, into a town called Sharon, which is, I've never even heard of it. My brother lives in Philly. I don't know how close that is to Philly, but it doesn't.
Opposite side. That's totally opposite. Philly is in eastern, and Sharon is on western.
Gotcha. All right, so you're basically the Midwest, I would say. And as a Persian guy, I don't think there were any other Persians that were in Sharon, Connecticut. Just like when I moved from Brooklyn to Long Island, I was the only Indian kid in my elementary school. So I just could only imagine the degree of bullying and racism and just sort of cultural unawareness that you were exposed to, and that in and of itself is really traumatizing. It's like you don't fit in with any particular setting. Like you, it sounds like you had like the worst clothes and the worst sneakers. I had that growing up, and then you get picked on for shit like that when you're a kid. And all of those little sort of micro traumas as a kid. And we're going to get into this because I know you mentioned this, is like that whole Tim Grover diving into your dark side. That is a big part of, I think, what feeds guys like you and I to like really kind of have, I guess we would say, a chip on your shoulder. But we're going to get into that in a minute. So from there, as your Persian mother, to make her proud, she just said, listen, you got basically 3 choices of what you could do in this world. You could be a doctor, you could be a lawyer, you could be an engineer. So, pick the 3 that you want. And, during high school, which I really want to get into some of this, you really had a passion for fitness. And, using that, you studied at Penn State. I believe it was Penn State. You studied, fitness and nutrition, and, really things that you were interested in. And then from there, you pursued a doctorate in chiropractic. You have a chiropractic degree, a doctorate in chiropractic from LA. Somehow you ended up in LA where all the other Persians are. And then, you never practiced a day, but you made your mom proud. She was very proud that you became a doctor, and she could tell all her friends that, my son's a doctor. And you never practiced. You actually went straight into fitness, and, you developed from what I understand, a gym within a gym, a kind of a private training gym within, like, I think it was an LA Fitness or something like that. 100%. And it became very successful. And, for the first time in your life, you tasted having a few dollars in your pocket, and, you enjoyed that a bit. And, I had a similar period in my own life that resonated with. And then 2008 happened. And, what was once a booming fitness industry, people were paying for trainers, all that money dried up, especially in Southern California, where there was a lot of people who were really hit by the mortgage crisis. and what was going on in the world, and your business basically went from over $2 million in revenue to under $500,000 in revenue, but you were living in a $2.5 million lifestyle. So with that came the pressures. You had a child on the way. You were newly married. That put a strain on the marriage, obviously. Then you went to like a sort of like the bottom, and you were kind of trying to figure things out, and really starting from scratch. Kind of broke, really, I think, and you used your last $11,000 to join a partner and start what you have now. And what's amazing to me is that over the course of, so that was like 2010, 2011, I guess, and we're in 2020. So in the course of those 9 or 10 years, you actually surpassed what you had. Like, you were probably trying to recoup what you had before the recession, and you've like surpassed that 50-fold in a very short period, basically. And there's so many lessons in all of this stuff that I just said. I don't mean to be taking up all the podcast with talking here, but I just want to kind of lay a framework for the things that we're going to dive into, because I had Bedros on my podcast a couple of podcasts ago, and he has this line that I love: is the difference between being poor and being broke. And you grew up poor, and poor is a mindset, but you turned that lifestyle of scarcity into a mindset of abundance, and a lot of that I think was through your fitness transformation and just things that you've endured. So even though you were broke in 2010, you weren't poor. Your mindset had shifted, and you were able to go from that low point, probably the lowest point that you've been in since you were a kid, with all the pressures of being a parent, and now you're divorced, and you were able to 50x what you did before that downturn. And I just think that's an amazing story, man. I think I'm so excited to get into little bits and pieces of all of this, man. So I just want to kind of start back. Let's start back from the beginning, and you talk to me a little bit about, I know you've talked about this in other podcasts, but maybe just briefly talk to me about what it was like when you were a kid, when you first came to the States, and maybe just break it down a little bit for my viewers who aren't familiar with your story.
Yeah, well, back then they didn't have Google or Yahoo or any search engines. So when my mom said, "Hey, we're going to go to the United States," well, I was like, well, that's where Michael Jackson's from. That's where all the celebrities are from. And I'm like, I remember watching American TV shows. And, there was American TV shows like Dallas Dynasty, 18, and everybody had mansions and swimming pools and Bentleys and Cadillacs. And so I thought I was coming to a country where everybody was a multi-millionaire and everybody just lived an amazing life. And like you said earlier, I came to a little town called Sharon, Pennsylvania, which is an old steel mill town that all the steel mills left, all the abandoned buildings now, and it's 1985 in the middle of crack cocaine epidemic. And my uncle did what most Middle Easterns do when they come to America. He opened up a convenience store in the worst neighborhood. So my first impression of America was, wait a second, where is the multi-million-dollar mansions? I only see abandoned buildings and abandoned homes. Where are, the Bentleys? I don't see anything like that here. And outside of my uncle's store, I literally just saw like pimps, prostitutes, and drug dealers. And so I went to go to enroll in 7th grade. I didn't speak English. We went to go enroll in 7th grade, and literally when I walked in, I stuck out like a sore thumb. Like, everybody looked at me like, what the hell is that? I wasn't black. I wasn't white. My clothes were different. My shoes were different. My haircut was different. And I didn't speak the same language. So it was a shock, especially when you consider you're coming at a pre-teenage year. When you're very vulnerable and you really care about other people's opinion, and you really want to get accepted. And that was my first impression of America.
Yeah, I think, it's important to know that those are like the worst years, I think, especially for all kids, like 12, 13, everyone's coming into their own, trying to figure it out. And for me, those are the worst years of my life, man. I was a mess. I used to get in fights all the time at school. I get suspended from school. I didn't fit in. I wore glasses. I was like, again, I used to wear like 7-year-old hand-me-downs. My brother's 7 years older than me. And you just get traumatized. It's traumatizing, actually. It is like, it's when you look back, and obviously we've all recovered from it, and, gone on to we got over it. But it is like, it really does affect you in a real way. And I can only imagine like what I went through because I was born here. It's compounded by 1,000 when you're foreign. How old are you, man?
I'm 47.
Okay, cool. So you were born in 1973.
Yeah.
Cool. I was born in 75. So yeah, we're sort of very similar time frames in terms of when we were in school and stuff. And I know part of this was, so, you basically were trying to fit in. They didn't have soccer, I guess, in your town, and soccer.
No, they're like, what soccer? They didn't have that. They have football. They went like this. I'm like, well, that's weird, man. I mean, that's American football. They're like, yeah, we have American football. So I was devastated because soccer was my life.
But that was like the only sport that was huge. It's coming from the Middle East, and then the little time you spent in Europe. That's the main sport.
Yes.
You tried out for basketball, and you didn't make the cut.
I didn't make the cut, man. 23 people, signed up to go to the basketball team. 22 people made it. I was the only one that didn't make it. And I was devastated. I was so devastated. I was that big. It was already bad enough. The kids were making fun of me, and I was getting bullied. And now they were making fun of me even more. They told me that, yeah, you're a foreigner. You don't belong in this country. That you're not good at any sport. You have no athletic ability. And there were just a lot of mean things that was said. But again, that is everything that's happened to me happened for me. Right. I remember I walked home in the snow, told my mom, I want to leave. I don't want to be here anymore. This country is not for me. I'm going to go back to my old country. And my mom sat me in my bed while I was crying and told me 3 things that changed for my life. She said, Sam, first of all, we can't go back because we came here as refugees. We escaped the country. And that was a concept we know as of right now as burning the boats. Don't give yourself an option to fail. Number 2, she said, Sam, do you really want to play sports? I said, yes. She said, well, Sam, you can do whatever you want and be whoever you want as long as you're willing to put in the work. And then 3rd, she said, okay, now let's figure out a way we can put in the work. Let's come up with a schedule. And she goes, okay, after school, you get out of school at 2:15. At 2:30, you're going to go to the boys club, practice basketball till 5 for 2.5 hours. I come pick you up after work. We'll go home. We'll do homework. We'll eat. And we'll rinse and repeat. And that's how I know now that, now to this day, I don't give myself an option to fail. I don't give myself an option. If I want something, I go all in. Number 2, I know that if I want something, anything is possible as long as I'm willing to pay the price. And 3, planning, something to do to this day. Something that I do to this day is I plan every single day exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah.
That has become the cornerstone of my life and my success.
Talk to me. It's funny because that's sort of the same concept of any high achiever. It's being hyper schedulized. Every minute of the day is accounted for. Getting your daily win that gets you to your major goal, and never failing to get that daily win. No matter for me, and I will get into this a little bit more, but I love fitness as a paradigm for life because a physique and fitness is not something you can buy. That's only something that you can earn by hard work, and it's chipping away every day. Day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. It can take years to see results. It took me years to start to see results. But you have to believe in getting that daily win no matter what. No matter how shitty you feel, if you're sick, your back hurts, your leg hurts, it doesn't matter. You're getting it done. Otherwise, you fail the day. And that's kind of, you have that. Everyone who's on this podcast basically has that mindset, which I love. And again, that's what I always say. Anyone can do it, but very few are willing to put in the work to do it. But talk to me a little bit about your mom. So what was she doing? What was her job? What was she doing when she came here?
So when she first came here, she was helping my uncle at the convenience store. And then later on, my uncle's convenience store had like a little, garage attached to it. And she said, hey, why don't I start a little boutique, little ladies clothing store? So she would go, and buy a few clothes, perfumes and accessories. And then she would sell them. And that became her business. And then she grew that over the years to a huge bridal boutique. She moved to actually a better location. And she was quite an entrepreneur herself. I saw her hard work. I saw how hard she hustled. Matter of fact, she drove to New York and was buying, bridal clothes and, bridal dresses and accessories from New York. Would bring it back to Sharon and sell it and I saw, how hard she worked. Literally drove there by herself. She's 5 foot, 4'11" maybe, 100 pounds, and she hustles so hard. So I learned to hustle, and the hard work from my mom.
So did she end up developing like a success for herself, like kind of the
Oh,
American dream?
absolutely, absolutely. She owns now several buildings, and she has several commercial buildings. She owns several homes, and over the years, she's became quite successful in her own right as a single mother.
That's amazing. Did you have to take loans and stuff for school, or was she pretty like flush by that time?
She paid most of it, but I also take some loans as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing to me. So my mom was very much. It's a very similar story, and I'm not going to get into all the details of it. You can hear it. Like I have a podcast with my mom, which you should check out because I think our moms are very similar.
I love that.
But it's first of all, women are incredible. The strength of a woman is. I don't think a guy could could do that what our moms did. Especially at that time when it was kind of taboo being a single parent. My mom never got remarried. I'm not sure if like my mom never. She was always alone, just dedicated her life to her sons. And the only thing she always told us, you need to stand on your own 2 feet. You need to stand on your own 2 feet. That's all she cared about. And medicine for her was the way that she was able to stand on her 2 feet and provide for the family. So that was the only option given to my brother and I, who's also a doctor. But it sounds like first of all, the American dream is a real thing. So anyone who doesn't think it's a real thing, then it's a real thing now. And no one comes to this country to work harder than immigrants. And immigrants want to build something better for themselves and for their family. And without them, this country is going down the tubes. So it's, it really is, because your mom provides jobs. She owns buildings. She's an entrepreneur. She pays taxes. All of these things that are really stimulating the economy. Your immigrant mother did, and now you're doing the same thing, the next generation as an entrepreneur. And, that in and of itself is its own amazing story. But the fact that within just maybe 5 or 6 years, your mom was able to basically support you guys, pay for most of college and, all that sort of stuff is incredible. And, your mom obviously had that mindset where there's a problem, we have a problem, and we have to put in a plan to solve it. So for you, you're going to go work out after school. You're going to do your homework, eat that, and then you're going to go back and work out and do whatever it takes. So I know you kind of veered at that point from basketball into fitness. You started. I think you started, basically weight training at that point and started to get really into bodybuilding. And you basically dedicated yourself to becoming a bodybuilder before you had the physique to show for it. Kind of you committed to that lifestyle. So you can tell me a little bit about that, man.
Well, I went to boys club to get better at basketball so I can practice next year. And I saw these guys coming from this room, and these guys were jacked. And at that time, I remember Arnold movies and the Rocky movies, and I was like, man, I want to look like them. So I started going up there. I was this little scrawny, awkward-looking kid with big belly. And when I walked in this room, there was a bunch of like blue-collar, steel workers, with overalls and steel boots, and they were just lifting insane weights. I was looking at them like, how can you be that strong? And to my surprise, I thought they would be like mean to me because they were these strong, big guys, because in school, everybody was mean to me. But to my surprise, they were so nice. And they were like, wow, look at this little kid, coming to the gym. Let us take him under the wing, show them how to lift properly, show them how to eat properly. And that became they became my friends. They became like my father figures, if you will. And so every day after school, I would go with a bunch of big guys. I was the scrawniest guy in the gym. And I would just work out, and I would work out, and I would work out, and I would work out. I would just take in what these guys were doing. And that taught me so much. Because not only I transformed physically, but I transformed mentally, I transformed emotionally, and I started developing better self-esteem and better self-worth.
I could say those guys were like your first mentors.
For sure, for sure. They were my first mentors.
I think that's so powerful. And first of all, mentor, especially when you don't have a dad, like mentors like that are really, really important. I've had a few of them growing up as well. Older male figures that I looked up to because I didn't have that at home. And there's something to be said for that. Like it is an important part of growing up, and it's something that as a parent now, that I really see. It's crazy, like being a dad without having a dad. Like it's kind of a wild. It's a trip, and you kind of want to be the best dad ever, just because that's something that you missed in your own life. But two things there. The mentorship is I think key, but I think that the second part of it is the transformation you make physically. It's really one of the most powerful transformations you can make, because it takes a lot of work to make a transformation. There's so many parts of it that need to be aligned. So it's not only like the workouts that you're doing at the gym. Nutrition is a huge part of it, probably the biggest part of it, and also the discipline that's involved. Getting your daily win, all that sort of stuff that we just discussed. But it gives you, this is the transformation that you get the most from a fitness transformation, because I think it's just so incredibly empowering with fitness. Is like when you make a physical transformation and all the mental toughness that it takes to get that physical transformation. But moreover, and I know this is something that you can speak to because you're a competitive bodybuilder, when you get to a goal, and this is the mindset, it's not that you arrive. So it's not like hey, I'm going to get fit and now I arrived. Okay, cool. Now I'm going to eat like shit and stop working out. It's no, you set a bigger and better goal for yourself. It's all about pushing yourself to the maximum. It's like that David Goggins, squeezing all of the potential out of your system. And once you realize that you've kind of broken a physical barrier, also a mental barrier, it's like, oh shit, what else can I do? Like, what else am I capable of? So I know, like, even like during college and chiropractic school, that's when you were competitively bodybuilding, right? Like, while you were shouldering the burden of academics. So, maybe talk a little bit about all of those things, if you don't mind, just like about mindset, about hitting a goal, pushing yourself to a bigger goal, about being a competitive bodybuilder, and how that strengthened your mindset.
I mean, look, I think in life, it's all about progression. No matter what goal you have, whether it's financial, whether it's relational, whether it's your physique, when you achieve that goal, you don't sit down and be like, okay, well, that's it. You want to see what else you can do. We as humans, we're at the top of the food chain because we have the ability to evaluate, self-assess, and say what we want to do next. Nobody else can do that. No other species that we know of is evolving as fast as we have evolved. So in college, I was the guy who had my gym clothes with me, my book bag with me, and my food with me. People, they used to make fun of me in class because I would literally have 3 bags with me, 3 huge bags I was walking around the campus with, because I was disciplined enough. I was able to juggle school, work, meal prep, and bodybuilding. And you can handle a lot more than you think you can handle. And most people just want comfort. Oh, it's too much, it's too much, it's too much. Well, you don't know until you just put it to the test. It's too much because you're uncomfortable. But remember, nothing happens in the comfort zone. Nothing happens in the comfort zone. You got to be willing to get uncomfortable if you want to progress. I'm a firm believer in that. And pushing your physique, and talking about just the physique part right now, also helps you build disciplined muscles for all aspects of your life, in your business, in your personal relationship, and everything else you do.
So true, man. I mean, so true. I think that's probably the most powerful thing is the discipline that you get. It's not those discipline reps that you get. It's not the reps with the plates on the barbell. It's the discipline reps. So talk to me a little bit about competitive bodybuilding. What was that like? Like just talk about bulking and cutting, and I imagine you probably did some, extra supplements like all the other bodybuilders.
Of course.
I know it's an extreme lifestyle. I mean, I love bodybuilding lifestyle because I think it's so extreme. Like the gym by us is, I work at home, but the Bev's gym is like the big bodybuilding gym.
Yeah.
But I just think the bodybuilding lifestyle is so extreme. I mean, these guys are literally pushing them. They're like they're 1%ers, and like in all aspects of their life. And
I think bodybuilding, the sport, is very unhealthy, because you have to take a bunch of drugs to be able to compete at the highest level. And I experimented with that when I was competing, at the highest level. But I think bodybuilding lifestyle, I think you might cut out.
Sorry, man. You're right. You have to be on juice. You're going to be a bodybuilder. I mean,
yeah.
right?
If you want to compete at the highest level, yes. But I mean, there are so-called natural bodybuilding. I don't believe in that, but if you're competing, everybody's pretty much taking juice. You know what I mean? And I think that that's not the right way of doing things, especially if you want to, I was talking about that in another podcast. And if you want to make a career out of it, it's not a good way to kind of kill yourself to try to make a little bit of money. And it is a very little money. It's not like, you're going to get a $25 million contract. You might make it at the highest level. You might make a couple $100,000 if you're number one in the world. You know what I mean? But it's really not anything to be like, oh my God, this is amazing, right? But a bodybuilding lifestyle, eating healthy, training every day, and having a discipline to rinse and repeat is the best thing you can do. And so I'll give you, so as far as bodybuilding is, I'm gonna tell you a story. So I remember when I first got into bodybuilding, I didn't know what I was doing. So I was literally kind of starving myself to get cut. And I would come in, I would be very, very cut, but I would lose a lot of muscle, in the beginning. And I would go in there, like, win my weight class, but I would never win the overall, And then one day I had a professional bodybuilder by the name of Patrick Lynn, come up to me in the gym and go, Sam, you got what it takes. You just don't know what you're doing. You don't know how you're over diet. Let me help you with your diet on the next show. I can help you win the overall title because you have the lines and symmetry and everything. And I said, well, how much is it going to cost me? And he goes, it's going to cost you $500. And I said, wait a second. My car doesn't cost that much. I have a beat up 92 Honda Civic, And he goes, well, that's how much it's going to cost. Do you want to win or not? And I really wanted to win the overall title. I was tired of just winning my class. So I literally borrowed from my student loans. Borrowed money from my student loans and paid Patrick $500. So that become my first paid mentor. You know what I mean? And Patrick had me do some unconventional stuff that now we know as carb cycling. Back then I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what it was. Next thing you know, he had me on 0 carbs for 5 days, and 2 days he had me eat like 400 grams of carbs, and 0 carbs and 400 grams of carbs, and all this crazy stuff. I was like, what is he doing? The night before the show, Mr. Orange County, he told me to go eat 6 double Whoppers, large fries, and a regular Coke. Now remember, I've been eating nothing but chicken and broccoli for like weeks. So I was eating these Whoppers in bed, and I was so tired of eating. I couldn't eat no more. My stomach was out to here, my muscles were this big. And now I'm panicking the night before the show. I call him up. I'm like, Patrick, I look like crap. I should have never ate this. And what are you doing to me? I think you messed me up. He goes, I'll see you in the morning. He hung up on me. Next morning, I go to the bathroom. I look in the mirror. I couldn't recognize myself. I looked like an Incredible Hulk. I had veins. I was vascularity. I was shredded. And he comes in and rings the doorbell in my apartment. And I literally wanted to kiss him. I was so happy. So I went to the bodybuilding show. And as soon as I walked in, everybody was like, well, how do you think you're going to do? I go, I'm going to win the whole show. And they're like, what do you mean you're going to win the whole show? That's a pretty positive thinking. I go, it's not positive thinking. I go, today, nobody's going to beat me. I don't care who. I don't care if it's Ronnie Coleman. It's not going to beat me today. And I got on stage and I swept the whole show. Wow. And the reason I'm telling you that story is because of the power of mentorship. Yeah. Don't be afraid to pay for somebody who's already been there, done that, a professional, somebody who's doing what you want to do. At that time, $500 was a lot of money for me. At that $500, he taught me what to do. And then I took his method, applied it, and became the first bodybuilder in history to have a first place title in every single weight class, because I was willing to part away with $500 to be able to get the knowledge that I wanted to do. And that's so important for so many people. You're only one piece of information away for you, or one connection away for you to make your next fortune.
It's so true. The caveat to that is there's some bad mentors out there. You gotta be
careful. No, absolutely. But you want to really research the mentor and see who you're hiring. Have they done what you want them to do? Have they done research? For example, Patrick, he had an IFBB Pro card. So I already knew he was a professional. I saw him place top three in Arnold Classic. So I knew he was doing that. So there's so many mentors out there right now. Just research them. Make sure they're the real deal. If they're telling you something, they've already been there, done that. If they're done it, then by all means.
Yeah, I think that's very powerful, and that's something I actually have. I've had mentors kind of all throughout, just going through med school and all that sort of stuff, and reaching out to folks who did things that I wanted to do. But even at this stage, it's like even more important to have mentors, because my goals are bigger now than they were before, and I'm in like uncharted waters and doing things that I don't know about. I'm just kind of doing it, but mentorship has been so critically important. I really believe in that, man. I think that's a really, really very, very important point that you're bringing up, man. So at your biggest, you did every weight class. You're not a tall guy, right?
No, I'm 5'5".
5'5". So what was your biggest? What 5'5"? How much did you weigh?
I think the biggest I got was like close to 210.
Wow.
Close to 210. That's the biggest. I literally was trying to get bigger. I couldn't eat that much anymore. I was like, done. I won every single weight class. And at one time I competed as a heavyweight. As a joke to see if I can make heavyweight. Just to place top 5. I was going to be happy with. So actually, the whole week before the show, I ate nothing but cakes and cookies to try to actually gain weight. And I stepped on heavyweight stage and I won the whole show. And it was crazy. Everybody was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like eating cookies and trying to, but it was just it was just to see if I can just do it.
So when you finish your chiropractic, so this is all while you were a student, right? Like while you're getting your doctorate, all this stuff was going on. That
it was some of it was when I was a student, and some of it was after when I started my business. While I was actually starting my business and building my business.
Okay, so let's get into that phase of your life a little bit. So when you graduated chiropractic school, you had 20 grand to your name. You needed 40 grand to start your business. Your mom was obviously a successful entrepreneur, so you told her the deal. He said, "I'm a doctor. I did what you wanted me to do. Now I'm going to pursue my dream."
Give me 20 grand.
Fitness, right? So I need 20 grand to do it, and she gave you 20 grand. And then I guess you started a gym within a gym at LA Fitness. I mean, that was probably like the early stages of real personal training, where like regular folks, it was like normal for them to get a personal trainer.
Yeah, everybody back then had a personal trainer. Yeah,
and which was kind of like a thing that started in like the late 80s, 90s, really when the .com stuff started happening, like in the 90s, I'd say that was like really, really big. So I guess, did LA Fitness not have a personal training program, or how did you get that?
Back then, LA Fitness hired a company because what LA Fitness didn't want to do is get in a personal training program. And what LA Fitness didn't want to do is deal with 20 different trainers and collect rent. So they hired one company and they said, "Okay, you pay us a big rent and you take care of the trainers." And
so you
the training, and that's what I did. Yes.
So you were like a franchisee of a larger company?
No. That was my own company.
That was your company. Okay.
My company. I started my own company inside of LA Fitness in Chino Hills.
So you told them, "I'm going to take care of this for you guys." You presented it to them, or were you already working out there, kind of knew them, and said, "Hey, I'm the guy."
So I worked for a company who had about 10 or 12 locations inside of LA Fitness who was doing their personal training. One day, the company goes out of business, gives us like no notice. And I knew the vice president of LA Fitness, and I called him and I said, "Renee, I would love an opportunity for me to take care of Chino. I can't take care of all of them. I don't have the money to run 10, but I can commit to one. Plus, I know everybody there. I can smooth everything out." And he talked to the owners, Lewis and Chin, and he gave me an opportunity, and I ran with it.
Wow. So were you a personal trainer at that point for that other company? You were working as a trainer?
I was. Yes, I was a personal trainer, and I was also their district manager.
Okay. All right. So you had your feet wet. I guess, were you doing some of that while you were a student also?
Yeah. I worked. I was a student. I always worked when I was going to school. I was competing. I was training. I was meal prepping. I literally had no time.
Right. Okay. So you already, you've been hustling since day one. So you started this business and you killed it. Like, you were killing it. How many trainers did you have working for you?
In the beginning, it was like 4 of us that I grew up to almost 20 trainers.
All in the Chino Hills?
Yes.
Wow. So at its peak, you were generating $2.4 million in revenue.
Not inside of LA Fitness. So I was in LA Fitness from 2000 to 2004. But a lot of my clients complain about LA Fitness cleanliness, the gym equipment weren't being serviced, and a lot of people who were kind of like more overweight, they didn't want to go to a meat market.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, I'm like, wait a second, I'm paying LA Fitness $17,500 a month for rent. I'm like, I wonder what it would be if I get my own facility. How much would it cost me? So I went to look at some locations and look at some equipment, and I'm like, wait a second, I can furnish this place and have a nice my private gym for about $9,000 a month, and I would save literally $8,000 a month, $8,500 a month, you know. And so I started doing that, but then I realized, wait a second, now actually have to start marketing because LA Fit, I don't have the foot traffic that LA Fitness does. So that's when I started getting mentors and getting help and all that kind of stuff for, you know, for marketing.
So
And I started marketing it.
who'd you reach out to help you?
Bedros. Bedros was one of my first marketing coaches.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So what was their advice at that time? Like around that time, I guess there was Google ads and all that sort of stuff, and like around that time, yeah.
Yeah, it was Google Ads, but most of the time, you know, what I did was, you know, I started advertising in local magazines. I started positioning myself, local magazine, local newspapers. I started sending out postcards. You know, I started learning lead generation. You know, and you know, I started killing it. I started doing really well. And in 2007, right before the recession, I did 2.4 million out of a 4,000 square feet facility.
Amazing, man. So talk to me about lead generation a little bit. What do you mean by that exactly? Like for what
Lead generation is for you putting out an ad and exchanging something of value for a person's name, phone number, and email address.
right. So download this handbook and give me your email address.
Yes. So then I can market to them all day long. So this way, it's a two-step process. Not okay. Hey, you want training? Call me. You know, that's not a lead generation because you're not generating leads. But when you know, you're getting somebody's name, phone number, and email address, so you can contact them, you know, over time. That's a lead. That's a lead generation.
Were you managing all of this on your own, or did you outsource that?
No, I was doing it on my own. At first I was doing it on my own.
Wow. So you were basically sending out emails in your downtime and
Yeah,
making
I was doing
all that
everything.
stuff.
I was doing everything. And then one thing I also learned later on is, you know, to get away from that and learn what's the highest and the best use of my time. And you know, I read a book called E Myth Revisited.
Love it, man. That was the first book. I'm going to tell you a story after you're done.
Yeah,
But yeah.
and so you know, learn how to work on my business and not in my business.
Mhm. It's funny that you said that. So when I was kind of going through this personal transformation myself about 3 years ago, I asked one of my friends who's a very successful entrepreneur. I said, man, I need a couple books, man. You got to give me some books to put my head in the right space. You know, he's like, all right. I was like, give me 5 books. So he gave me E-Myth Revisited, Michael Gerber, amazing book. And I actually, every book I read, and I'm sure you do the same thing, I take one thing out of it. And that's like what's the one most important lesson? So that book to me, the most important lesson was systemizing your life and systemizing your business, right? So I created systems. I literally can't. We're in Miami with my family. I was reading the book. I came back. I literally came back that night and made all these Google sheets for each position in my office with like a 20-point checklist for the day, like the things that need to get done, you know. And that was a great book, man. 4 Hour Work Week. I'm sure you read that. That was another one. Tim Ferriss, Gary Vee's Crushing It, which was amazing. Which I really inspires like all of the social media stuff that I do. The One Thing was yeah. And then 10X Roll, Grant Cardone was the last one. But yeah, it's amazing. So tell me more. So you read that book, and you know you kind of you systematize. Is that around that time that you read that book?
Yes, it was around 2005 when I read that book. I started developing systems. I started working on the business, not so much in the business, you know, and I started developing a real business, a real plan. And in 2005 is also when I stopped bodybuilding. I retired from bodybuilding. I said, like, I don't want to, you know, go on, you know, and do what I need to do to become a professional because there's no money in it, and I don't want to damage my body. Eventually, my plan is always to have a family. I was to get married and have children. So I was like, okay, now it's time for me to really take this business for real. You know what I mean? It's time for me to, you know. So and at that time, I was okay making money and pursuing my hobby, you know, bodybuilding. And now I'm like, okay, if I'm going to get married, I'm going to, you know, bring children in this world. I need to take this to the next level. And that's why I started getting mentorships and started, learning more about marketing, more about sales systems, and I was doing great till the 2008 recession, as you know, and I had to revamp and get everything back on track.
So, so a couple of things I want to talk about, like at this sort of stage in your life. So one is you're making more money than you ever thought you were going to make, right? I imagine.
I come from Sharon, so you make $2,000 a month in Sharon, you're balling.
Yeah, yeah. So like, I mean, at that point, you're probably driving some fancy cars, got some nice watches, got a nice place, like kind of living, like, living the dream, like I had a very sort of similar up deal. Like, I grew up very humble beginnings. I always worked. I had paper route, delivered pizzas, worked at an ice cream shop, tutored, anything I could do to make some money, because I was best job ever, by the way. But my mom always gave me everything I needed, but I never had money for anything that I wanted, right? So I always had to like hustle on the side. And I remember when I was in college, I valet park cars. So I grew up in the South. I don't know if you're familiar with the New York area, but I grew up on the South Shore of Long Island, which is sort of a very blue collar. I grew up in a very blue collar town, regular town. But I used to come to the North Shore to work, to valet park cars. So these are where all the fancy restaurants are. I mean, I didn't even believe this was reality. The fancy mansions, the golf clubs. I used to like park like Bentleys and Ferraris, and I was like, who the hell are these people? Like, this is crazy. Like I used to valet park cars at country clubs. Like, it was a totally alternate reality from when I grew up, and I didn't even realize that was like people actually lived like that. Like it was amazing to me. And then fast forward 20 years, like I'm in my 30s now, like my mid to late 30s. I started my practice on Fifth Avenue. I started another practice on Long Island. I was living in the neighborhood that I used to work in, eating at the restaurants that I used to park cars at, belonged to the country club that I used to valet park cars at. Literally, like living a dream of a life that I never thought was possible. Like it's like, this is crazy. This is my life, and I couldn't believe it. And that's kind of like, I think that's really where you are now. But I imagine at that time, like you were like, wow, holy shit, like life can't get any better than this, right? Like it was amazing. And then the reason why I'm bringing all this up is because, like I said, like, you were generating whatever you were generating at that point, and then everything fell apart. We're going to get into that period in a minute. But where you are now, which is literally 12 years later, is 50 times, probably more than 50 times where you were at your highest before that, right? Yeah. So that's what the difference is between being broke and being poor is, because you got broke, but you were never poor. So let's get into that a little bit. So 2008 happened, market crashed. What happens?
I mean,
are you married at that point?
I mean, to be honest with you, man, I was devastated. We were pregnant with our first child. I remember having a meeting with with the wife back then, and we were sitting at a restaurant, and I'm like, we're minus $314 in the bank account. And I was staring at her belly, and I felt like such a loser, because remember, I didn't have a dad to provide for me. And now all of a sudden I became that person, the dad that couldn't provide. But I told her, I'm like, look, I don't care. I'm trying to figure this out. And in life, you have a choice. When you get punched in the face, you can either just retract and go to your corner, sit down and quit, or you can just try to punch back and try to get back up. And after about a week of eating pizza and feeling sorry for myself, I was like, all right, let's get back up and try. And for a period of 6 years, man, from 2008 to 2014, I got up every single day. And every single day, I was defeated. Every single day, I took an L, And it was really devastating at the time, because my why was taken away from me. And
your wife and your child were taken away from you at that point.
My why is providing for my wife and my child. And then in 2014, when I started seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, I started seeing that, okay, all the 6 years of work started to pay off a little bit. I'm starting to get more traction. And then I got hit with another devastating thing, which was a divorce. So in life, you're either hit.
You guys didn't get divorced until 2014?
Yes.
Wow. I didn't realize that. I thought it happened much earlier, like much closer to 2008.
No, 2014.
Wow. So what were you doing between those years? I know because I know your business now. I know. So initially the business wasn't as profitable, as it is now. But what was going on between 2008? So you I guess you partnered up with one of your former
I
tech.
didn't, I didn't partner up till 2010. So
Okay.
2008, 2009, 2010, I was just trying to experiment with different things. We
Well, how were
started,
you making any money? Like, what were you doing? Yeah.
I started doing small group training. I started doing more challenges, different types of ways to get people in and get people interested. Try to figure out different programs that I can get people in because people couldn't afford five, six, $800 a month for personal training. So then, in 2010, when Ali approached me with the boot camp concept, and I said, all right, let's try it. I only had $11,000 in the bank, and that's my whole life savings, and Ali was like, okay, I just need 9,000. So I started the camp with her $9,000. I told her I'll market it. She'll teach all the classes. I started marketing it, and that starts taking off little by little, little by little, little by little. And, not until 2013, 2014 did we started growing. For a period of, I don't know, from 2010 to 2013, we were growing very, very slowly. We were just getting it started. And then next thing you know, we started exploding.
So I can tell you right now, I know one percenter is a thing that a constant theme in your life. 99% of people would have given up in 2011 or 2012. 99% of people would have been like, "This isn't working. I got to go to do something else." What kept you in? Like, did you have a deep belief in the concept?
I'm a firm believer. I gotta love what I do, and fitness has been what I've done all my life. I can also get in real estate because I don't have passion for real estate. I hire people right now to find me deals and investment properties and things like that. But I don't want to get into real estate. If you look at the books behind me, I'm either studying business, personal development, or health and fitness. I'm still passionate about it like I was 20, 25 years ago. So rather than just jumping ships and trying to figure something different out, I'd rather just stay in my own ship and figure it out what I'm in right now. See, a lot of people just want to jump ship. So they become jack of all trades and master of none. I know what I'm good at. I just pivot and figure out a different way to go about what I'm really good at.
So you were committed to the concept, and you're gonna ride it out. So tell me, because you got divorced in 2014. That was unexpected.
Yeah, that was unexpected. I didn't want a divorce. I didn't, remember I didn't have a dad, so I wasn't going to leave.
Yeah.
But when I got slapped with it, I'm like, wow. I know we weren't getting along, but it wasn't like anything like infidelity or anything like physical abuse or anything like that. We're just not getting along, and I wasn't the one who's going to pull the trigger. I'm glad she did. And like I said, at the time I was devastated. At the time I was like, man, this is crazy. I moved out to a hotel for a few months,
Wow.
thinking something's going to get better. I showed up to work like nothing happened, just trying to put my face on. And later on, man, became the best thing that ever happened to me as well.
Are you married now?
Yes, I am.
You are. So you have a daughter from your first marriage.
Two daughters from the first marriage, and I have a brand new son now.
Congratulations, man.
Thank
Oh,
you.
that's dude, you're like a crazy baller, man. Like, you got like these Ferraris and Lambos and G wagons. You live in like a crazy house. When did it turn? Like, when was it like, holy shit? Like, this is like, I'm like crushing it right now.
I would say, in 2014, I started seeing some traction, 2015, 2016, and all that kind of stuff. And I want to sit down here and tell you that none of that stuff matters. I'm in a whole different, place in my life right now. Matter of fact, I just sold a Ferrari and I'm about to sell a few other cars because I'm at this point, I'm not into material things. I'm into mindset. I'm into peace of mind, and I'm into making generational wealth. That's what I'm into right now. It's funny you say that because like I said, growing up poor, I thought it was a Ferrari and a Lambo and a G-Wagon and all that kind of stuff. And now I'm like, gosh, man, even when I had all those cars, I still have all of them except the Ferrari. I drove my Infiniti SUV, because I can put the dog in there, and I can throw my dog in there, throw my soccer stuff in there, and jump in there, and I don't have to worry about scratching it or driving it over like a curve or anything like that. As I became older, like and wiser, I really understand what really matters in life. And if I like to now live minimalistic, I really do.
Man, I love everything you just said right there. So I'm gonna share something with you as well. Have you read David Meltzer's Connected to Goodness? Have you read that book?
I haven't ready yet. No.
So when you kind of grew up like we grew up, I always loved cars. I was always fascinated with cars. I always was like obsessed with them. I just thought they were the most amazing things. And I remember like kind of like before there's like before when I was 42 and there's after I was 42. So up until that point, like in my 30s, I started making some real coin, and I was like, holy shit! Like I can buy a Bentley, and I bought a Bentley. I could buy a Ferrari. I could buy a Range Rover. I could buy a Mercedes. So I just flee to cars, and I was like, holy! And I remember I was driving. This was the summer of 2017. I was driving to my country club to play golf, and I was driving my Ferrari to my country club, and thinking I had a bunch of people working for me. I had my two offices. Things were happening. I was still working hard when I worked, but I had a lot of time. I was playing a lot of golf and stuff. I was 42 years old, and I was thinking like, holy shit! I can't believe this is my life. Like I can't believe like this is what I'm living. And I did that for like 2-3 weeks, and then after a while, I was like, wow, this is really. I'm not happy. I'm not happy with this. And but you almost have to go through that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You got to get there.
Have it to not care about it, because I remember my Bentley was literally sitting in a parking spot at my house, and there was like a rat's nest. It was like a brand new GTC coupe, fat, blacked out, pimped out Bentley, but I was never driving it. And I took it to get serviced, and they're like, hey, there's like a rat's nest that's they're living in your engine. And I was like, you know what? I was like, this is crazy. And I started really thinking about what's important to me and what I want my next 40 years to look like. And it's all about exactly everything you just said. I don't give a fuck about having. I mean, I still have a Ferrari, but I don't. That's not important to me. Like, what's important to me is spreading a message of positivity, talking to the 8-year-old me and telling them you can do whatever it is you want to do as long as you're willing to work for it, spreading a message of self-empowerment. I just finished my first book called Let's Get It, which is all about this sort of thing. And it's amazing because like everything you just said about like downsizing, creating generational wealth, like, driving a beater and not caring, just because you've already been there and done that. And it's not like you can't still do that. You could. It just provides no value to your life.
Yeah.
Like your life is about so much more than that, and you say like, one of the lines that you say that I love, if it's not something that's generating income for you or enabling you to spend more time with your family, it's not worth doing it.
100%. 100%.
Hey man, so I guess we'll just close with a few things because I know you got to roll. I love your story, man. I love what you're all about. Can you just talk to me about what the next few years look like for you? So like, what's the plan? What's what's on your to-do list?
Honestly, the next few years is for me to just spend as much quality time with my children and spend time in developing my children, traveling with them, and just pick and choose what I want to do in business and how I want to spend my time. I'm pretty much retired. I'm pretty much, I don't have to be anywhere. I don't have to do anything that I don't want to. And just getting into, doing more stuff that, like you said, it's going to provide more time with the family, and it's going to provide residual income for me.
I love it, man. And just last thing before you go, man, just talk to me a little bit about your fitness and nutrition right now. What are you doing? Because you're obviously still in shape.
Well, I've been doing intermittent fasting now, because I hear all the health benefits and everything. So I do 20 hours of fasting, 4 hours of eating, and every day, 6 days a week, I hit the weights. And 6 days a week, I do some kind of a cardio, whether it's walking, whether it's stairs. And on Sundays, sometimes we just go for a nice little walk around the neighborhood. But every day I do something.
What's your split, like in terms of upper body, lower body? Do you full body? What do you generally do?
I do the same split I've done for years, man. I do chest, shoulders and triceps, back and biceps, legs. I repeat that routine for another 3 days.
Love it.
Yeah.
Sam, man, I look forward to sharing a workout with you one of these days, man. You're someone who really inspires me, and your story is inspiring. I think you're going to inspire so many people. I'm so proud to be able to share
Thank
your
you, Doc.
journey, audience, man.
I
And,
appreciate
I hope when the world opens up, man, hopefully we can connect. If I'm your way, you're my way, man.
it. For sure, for sure.
All right, brother. Well, have a good day. Thank you so much, my man.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys, for listening to this podcast. Sam is a beast of a human, and I'm so excited to have been able to share his story. If you're interested in more stories like this, please check out any one of these podcasts. They're all amazing stories, amazing humans that will inspire you. You can listen to the audio of these podcasts on any of the platforms that you use, Spotify, iTunes. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Dr. Mudgil podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Let's get it.